What's happening, fishing friends? Today we're doing some gear talk. We're going to be looking at one of the best-selling, most popular reels on the market, but not just one. We're going to talk about the whole lineup. I'm going to give you an up-close look at every SLX, talk about the pros and cons to each one, and compare it to its brother or sister in the lineup to help you make a decision if you're looking to grab one of the Shimano SLX Baitcasters to see which one is right for you. And I've really liked them, and there's a reason why they're one of the best reels out there on the market, all the way from beginner in that $100 to $200 price range. Good looking reel. So, if you've only had, maybe $40 to $50 baitcasters, you're looking to step up, these are a good pick. Okay, starting out with the original, the OG Shimano SLX Baitcaster. That's this one, the first one to hit the market. And really it was Lew's, honestly, that put kind of the whole $99 price category on the map. And I think really the SLX and the Lew's LFS are probably the best two right at that $99 price point. You get aluminum frames, you get good features, brakes, all that stuff are pretty easy to use. Now there's some things I like, for one over the other, but overall the SLX is an awesome pick. Now this comes in at 6.9 ounces, has 3+1 bearings, has the Hagane / aluminum frame. The big thing is it's not graphite. And when you pop the side plate off and look inside, it's got those SVS brakes. Now, for me, that's one of the downsides of this reel. They're purely centrifugal, so if you're not familiar with a bunch of brakes on baitcasters, these little wings here, you have to pop them out. So as the spool is moving around, those little wings come out and put friction on this little brass race. Right inside there, that brass piece right there, they put friction on that, and that's what slows your lure down, stops you from backlashing. Now, the problem with centrifugal brakes is they need that force, they need that pushing motion. They're not always on. They get to a point where they can completely stop. So if you cast kind of into the wind, your lure stalls up there a little bit, you're going to get a backlash. So you have to set them just a little bit different. That's why I think the Lew's LFS is a little bit better at this price point, because of those brakes, easier to use. But this one I think is a smoother reel. It's awesome. Both are really good, awesome small frame in hand. It's not a big reel. All the SLXs I think are a 150 size. We'll get into that, but it's a 150 size frame. Overall, holds enough line. A great do-it-all reel. So it's really hard to beat these. This is the old one, the first one that came out with the black and blue accents. I do like that they changed it up to the silver on the newer one. This is the one that came out in 2023. Used it a bunch last year and really liked it. Good as the old one. It's got the same SVS brakes in there. I actually did a full breakdown comparing these two, so I'll link that at the end so you can watch it if you're, your budget's at 99 bucks and you're thinking about this one. That one really goes through all those. But overall, the SLX starting out at $99, the first one in the lineup. Great reel if you're looking to kind of step up to that $100 category. You've never had a reel like that. You get great grips. It's the same grips that are on the Corrado. Smooth reel. I think the smoothest $100 reel. So good pick. The first one. Okay, stepping up to the second reel in the lineup, the Shimano SLX XT. So you can see the side plate looks a little bit different. Stepping up to this one, we're going from $100 to $130. So what are the differences here? Pretty much all the same. The big difference between the regular SLX and the XT, when you open it up, you see, whoa, why does it only have 4? Well, that's because this is the SVS Infinity braking system. So you can see the same brass race there. What they've done with this one, if you're wondering what I'm doing, there's a little lever there. That's how you close the brakes. With this one, what they've done is they've given you the ability to further adjust those brakes. So instead of just having the little pads, the cone inside there, when you turn this knob right here, go from less to more, it moves that closer or farther away. So it moves it closer to it to give more friction. Actually, it'd be like this. Closer to it to give more friction as those are spinning around when the spool's going, and it moves it away so there's less friction. So instead of just having one, those brake pads on the other one where it's one static spot, it moves that brass ring closer and farther to give you more braking power. So it does give you noticeably better brakes as you're adjusting this one. It's significantly better than the SLX, and that's the biggest thing when people ask, what's the difference between that one and this one? And there's a few things with this one. It's 7.2 ounces. 4+1 bearings, stuff that you're really not going to notice, but the big thing that you will is that braking system. Same frame, same 150 size frame. It does have the same knobs. I put some EVA knobs on here because I was using this as my Texas rig reel. And if y'all watch my channel, I like big knobs. I like something larger to grab onto when I'm really flipping, pitching, a jig or a frog, something like that. So I put these on here, but these handles are completely fine on here. So that's the second one. Not a ton of difference. Like I said, the big deal is the brakes there. So if maybe you're looking to step up just a little bit, you want something maybe a little easier to use as far as, casting distance, dialing it in, messing with, distances and different lures and stuff more, I think this one is definitely worth the price up. Okay, next up, I said that I'm going to go over the normal ones because I'm not going over the JDM versions. Not a ton of people are getting the JDM reels and stuff. I personally don't have. I think there's a JDM version, the SLX XT that I just showed you. They have a DC version of that. MGL JDM version, something like that. But again, I'm not going to get into all that. This is the only JDM one that I have. It was for a specific reason. You can see the looks of it a little bit different, kind of that gunmetal and black, because I've been getting asked all the time to try some of these, the BFS reels. So I got this one. This one comes at $140. I got mine on Digitaka. It's a Japan company, reputable. I was very scared to order overseas. What happens if I don't get it? How do I work with them? But they had questions for me on one, emailed with me, and I've got everything from them that I've ordered. I've ordered a few reels, and I've had a really good experience. So I'm comfortable recommending that to people. They're one of the more well-known spots. When I pop that spool out to show you, see how small that is? Tiny spool, you can actually see through it. I can see through the line and the holes to it. That's how small it is. BFS spools are extremely small, very little line capacity to them, and the reason for that is less startup inertia. If you're going to cast a really light lure, you need light line on it. I think this is 4-pound or 3-pound line. I don't remember what I put on. Just enough to kind of cover it. I'm not going all the way to the end of the spool. The goal is to get enough line on there where you can make a good cast with it. I was throwing a 16th ounce minnow spin. Y'all saw that in one of my last videos, and it really can wing a thing out there. Now, I'm not huge on let's see how small of a lure I can throw 1/87th on 1-pound line. Like that stuff is not fun to me. I don't really care. If I'm going to throw small jigs and stuff like that, I'll just use my spinning tackle. But I think these could be fun if you put some 6-pound line on here, throwing some of the real small, like balsa crankbaits and stuff that are kind of hard to throw. Some of the little jerk baits and stuff. I think that's pretty neat. I've also got a couple little Topwaters, a popper, like a Rebel Pop R, one of the real tiny ones. Messing around with some of that stuff is actually pretty fun, but I don't have, some sort of hatred to spinning reels. There's some people that just, like the challenge of using a baitcaster over a spinning reel. They just like the feel of it better. There's a number of different reasons, but there's no arguing the gain in popularity that these have had, which is kind of interesting to me. I'm not sure what the whole phenomena behind it is, but $140 if you're casting really light stuff. I was actually impressed by how far it would throw a 1/16 ounce. If you wanted to do Ned rigs or like little 1/8 ounce shaky heads and you would rather have a casting reel instead of using spinning gear, as long as you've got a rod that'll handle it that light of a lure and load it up for you, that's a fun deal. So that's the only JDM one that I have. I'll leave all this stuff linked below for Digitaka so you can find it. And then, of course, Tackle Warehouse for their stuff. I partnered up with them. So anytime you use those links, a little bit comes back to help me so I can do reviews on gear and do giveaways, all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate anybody that uses those. But if you shop somewhere else, that's all right. I still love you. Okay, next up in the lineup is honestly my favorite reel out of the whole bunch. This is the Shimano SLX MGL 70. Now, I was kind of confused on this when I first got it because when I held it, I thought, man, it does feel good and small, comfortable in hand being a 70 size, but I was like, wait a minute. I compared the MGL to the regular SLX, and guess what? It's the exact same frame. They still use the 150 size frame on this, which is different than... It's a smaller frame. Usually when they have the numbers like that on the sizes, it's referring to the frame size. In this case, it's a smaller 70 size spool fit into this 150 size frame. So a little bit different. I think they probably could have had, a better reaction with this if they would have made a slightly smaller frame like they did with the Corrado, but I'm sure cost things and stuff. This one, the MGL, comes in at $150, so it's not crazy expensive, but a little bit more from stepping up to the XT to this, $20 more. Now, the big thing with this one is, and there's actually a new one coming out, I think this year, actually, it's still set to go out. The new SLX MGL, which is going to have the MGL 3 spool. This one, the side plate pops off. I really like that when you have to get into a baitcaster to mess with the brakes inside here. I think they should always be connected, just like that one. If I have to get in here, I don't want to accidentally drop it and stuff. With the ones that are all controlled from the outside with magnets, no big deal. I'm not usually opening it out on the water. But with this one, it has the SVS Infinity brakes. You can see there. Plus here your dial where you can fine tune them. It's the better brakes. And then when you compare this to the SLX spool, it's slightly smaller. It's also lighter. And that's a big thing with the MGL spool, this one here. On the MGLs, anything trying to throw a lighter weight, you can see they've cut holes in it. Smaller spool there. They've tried to cut as much weight down on it because the lighter the spool is, the less inertia or power, force it takes to get it spinning up. So the less power that takes, the lighter the spool. Generally, the lighter the lures you can cast. So anytime you're seeing the MGL spool in the Shimano lineups, generally targeted for lighter lures, lighter applications. So it's not going to be one like this that you want to get for your A-rigs or, the big swim baits and stuff. It's meant for the more finesse things. So smaller crankbaits, if you've got like a little finesse Texas rig, and really jigs and stuff, finesse jigs and stuff. Great for that because it's meant for that lighter weight. Now it can still handle, like, even if you're throwing a 3/8 ounce Texas rig or something like that, it's not that they're dainty. Still got the same parts and everything inside. Still a great reel, but generally meant for those lighter things. Like I said, because of that lighter spool, it's meant to really help cast, flip and pitch those lighter lures for you. So my favorite one of the bunch, I was the most surprised using this one, casting a lipless. This was a couple years ago during the spring. I had tested a little bit here and there, but I took it out that day and was throwing that lipless, and I couldn't believe how far I was whipping that thing. Didn't have any backlash issues. It was pretty windy. Overall, it's my favorite reel. Now, I wish they wouldn't have put like the little smaller knobs on this one. They're not tiny, but when you look at them compared to the other SLXs, you can see it is definitely a smaller, more finesse knob. And I personally don't like that. I mean, I have pretty average hands, so in hand, these fit amazing, but I hate having a little tiny knob like that I'm grabbing to reel onto. That's just a me thing. That's my only thing that I don't like about it. It's a pretty reel. I know that obviously looks don't matter, performance first, but when it comes to reels in the lineup, if I could only pick one and have an arsenal of all these, it would for sure be the SLX MGL, because who am I kidding? I'm not throwing around the 5-ounce big swim baits and catching monster trophy bass. Okay, last in lineup, and probably the most well-known for the sound, it is the Shimano SLX DC. Who doesn't love that? Oh yeah, you can hear it there. The DC sound. Now this isn't the Corrado DC. They have, the different lines. The Corrado DC I think is what, $270? This one comes in at $200. So there's definitely a price savings. This is more of your budget. Actually is the most budget DC reel I think Shimano had ever released at the time. Normally it was the higher priced, Metanium, Scorpion, like I said, the Corrado. So they finally brought that technology down into this. Now it's not the higher, like IDC4, I think is the better DC braking system. I want to say that's what's in the Shimano SLX XT DC. Like I said, that's a JDM version. You can get that at Digitaka too. I think it's like $210, so a little bit more. Kind of the upgraded version of this one. So with the DC reel, what's the big hubbub? If you're going from the regular SLX with centrifugal brakes over to this one, $100 more. The whole big deal with the brakes is the DC, the digital control. What that means, when you open this up, it looks significantly different from all the other baitcasters because that digital control in here, it checks the spool as you cast. And it had to take me some getting used to. It checks the spool like, I don't remember, 500 or 1,000 times, some crazy number like per second as that spool is going around. So for me, the biggest deal now with all my centrifugal brakes, ranging from all these SLX all the way up, I generally set my spool tension higher than I normally would on like a magnetic braking. So when I'm setting a normal reel, I'll click the thumb bar in, I'll move the spool side to side on here, just a tiny click, just you've got the smallest bit of movement is how I would set like a loose with magnetic brakes. With these, I get to that point and I tighten it up a little bit more so there's no side-to-side play. It takes all that out because all that braking system needs friction, right? So I don't want the spool moving around. You get better casts. With the DC, I actually had quite a few backlashes when I first got this, and I'm like, what a freaking sham, because I didn't have a Corrado DC at the time. This was my first one, and I'm like, how am I still backlashing with this? You got to go a little bit tighter than you think you would on your spool tension here, right there, your cast control knob. I tightened that up a little bit more than I normally would, and I really had to get used to not thumbing the spool. So normally when I cast a baitcaster on some of my old videos, and I'm going to be revamping those this year, how to cast a baitcaster, doing some of those, getting a backlash out, updating them, adding some things that I've learned here and there. But normally when I cast a baitcaster, you throw it out. I've always got my thumb close to it, kind of riding the spool to kind of, give pressure when I need to make sure it's not getting too crazy and over fluffed up. Put the pressure on it when I'm ready to stop it, and then, engage the reel. With this one, you don't want to use your thumb because it messes up the cast and the brakes to it. So when you throw that, just let the reel do its own thing. You'll hear, and it's fine-tuning how fast or slow it needs to be to keep up with that lure going out. And then, of course, right before it hits the water, that's when you put your thumb on it to stop your lure. That way you don't backlash at the end. But that was a big thing for me, is making sure I had that tuned and set up. Now, the brakes for this one, it's got 4 or 5, I don't remember what it is, let me see. 4 settings here, and you'd have to look in your manual because there's one that's like fluorocarbon versus braid, whatever they are. I forget what it is. It is a really good reel in case you've got wind or you're someone new to skipping. With that digital control, it's really overacting or compensating, I guess, when you get that wind or any of those external forces because it's continually checking it. A lot of times when you've got wind, you cast it out, and by the time you feel the backlash of the spool starting to go, it's too late. You put your thumb on it, it's all fluffed out already, right? With this one, it's checking that for you. So in the wind, really good. Skipping, really good. If you already know how to use a baitcaster, do you need the DC brakes? Not at all. In my opinion, it's kind of a nice thing to have in some of those, but some of the other, like Daiwa or some of the others, you can get them tuned in just as well to cast right into the wind without a backlash. So really comes down to preference, what you like, but again, it's got the same handles on here, same 150 size. All of them are extremely comfortable. This one I think is just a tad wider because of the brakes, but overall the lineup is really, really good. So what I want you to do is comment below and let me know, out of these, have you used an SLX reel? And if so, which one is your favorite? You know, did you start with the regular SLX and went up to something like this, or maybe even went up to the Corrado? And that was my second question. Would you like to see a lineup of all the Corrados compared, going over each one, kind of maybe what they're good for, as kind of a guide for you all if you're looking for a baitcaster, because I get questions on gear all the time, and I love it. If I could set up like a DEBO'S gear hotline and just answer gear questions all day, get paid for it, man, that's my dream job right there. But comment below and let me know. This one was kind of fun. We can do some other ones in the Daiwas, Lus. Let me know. We can go through kind of all these brands and stuff and have some fun. So we need to subscribe, fishing friend. We're going with Mr. David Bronstein. This was on my latest tube video. He's also a member. And thank you all the members out there that support me on a monthly basis. I appreciate y'all. But we were talking about the tubes, and he was talking about the Gets It tubes, the finesse tubes. Lots of different tubes out there. Tube is a fun one to do. Heck, also let me know below. I've got some other ideas for some kind of bait breakdowns. I want to get back more into that, the beginner stuff, not necessarily even beginner, but more of the rigging, looking at different lures, where they kind of work, how I use them. And that's just not for a beginner. I mean, there's a lot of people that have been out with people that have fished a long time and don't use a certain type of lure. Now, again, I am no pro at this. I always say I don't know everything, but I'm happy to share everything that I know with you. So fun way to go about, trying new things for the year. That's what I always try to do, is pick a couple things. But anyway, I'm rambling here. I need to edit. I'm out. Love y'all. Thanks for watching, and until next time.